Welcome in to the Bobby Carpenter Show.
You held on
This
a few more
wonderful,
seconds, Bob.
this wonderful Tuesday. Excited for everybody here, rolling through the week. Pretty juiced up with everything going on today's Schlegs. It's cruising. I finally got some nice weather in Ohio. We know we talked about yesterday coming off of Mother's Day weekend. So that was it's a BFD. It was a nice juicy deal. We got everybody excited. You know what? Kind of slipped my mind and not get into it prior to this, but did you see over the weekend the Adarius Smith or Hayes situation?
I'm looking at it now, Bob. I mean, it's terrible.
Yeah, and
Fill the people in.
So, I'm sure most people have seen this already, but Darius Hayes, rising sophomore, I believe, at Miami, gets in a collision. I believe like late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. Gets a car wreck. Hits an elderly woman. I think she's in her 80s. She had two children. 78. Two children in the car. They both die. And it's just an absolute tragic situation. And I know we've talked about a lot of this at Georgia, and no signs of impairment. They're still investigating everything going on, which, it's good. But just oh man, it's the things that you see. And when you're young, man, as we talk and we have jokes, and we like to tell a lot of the stories. And stories are fun and stories are great because when you get to escape the story, and it's a story where a lot of things could have went wrong and nothing did. You feel blessed about it and you can laugh about it. But, oftentimes there is stuff that goes wrong. And so I remember seeing this and just heart dropping for him, for the Miami program, for the families of the people that are involved. And just as always, a reminder out there, Schlegs, as we've talked a lot about this and talked about Georgia and even, made jokes, made light of it at times, even though there was a loss of life involved with the amount of guys they've had speeding down there. And it's a serious situation. And I don't know any of the other details, but anytime you get behind a car and you've got two kids that drive, my oldest son is going to be getting his temps here in a couple of weeks. And I told him, I don't know if he told me this. He may have told me that more people are killed in vehicular accidents than by any type of firearms in the United States every year. And so understanding what is the gravity of what you're doing all the time and what can potentially happen and how serious it is, Schlegs, is, you leave your house, you put your seatbelt on, hopefully, and you do everything the right way, and you're taking care of business, and just tragedies can always happen.
In the texting and driving, Bob, that we're all kind of guilty of, and being smart about that. And there's a lot of variables. I know we're talking about this particular situation, which is horrific. But it's the reality, I mean, both of my kids are graduating high school. They are no longer going to school. Like, their school is done. It's just like they're just at home right now, like working out or mowing the grass.
What if they're acting like you were, Schlegs, when you got like done from school in between Air Force and Ohio State?
Sure, that's why I raised them better. That's why I raised them.
I tell my kids, like, well, you did. I go, be better than me. That's my goal for you. Be better than me.
My expectations for them is significantly higher than probably my parents were for me. And I think I was the third one, and I was 9 years younger than my youngest sister. And they were probably like, he's good. He can take care of himself. Now, granted, that started at the age of 15, but I digress. And it all worked out. But still, it doesn't mean that I didn't speed. So you tell them, and you, just like in the weight room, when you say like this stuff will kill you, right? Like that, why is it important? Like, you could get seriously hurt in a weight room. How much more is that behind a steering wheel? And what are the, with your boys, like we're moving from Jacksonville and we're driving back to Ohio. And I said, listen, man, like when I was 18 years old, I turned 18, I think like 5 days later, my parents are like, where are you? Like, blowing me up on my pager. And
way to date yourself. Right,
I know. They're like blowing me up on my pager. So I had to stop off of the Kansas Turnpike. I didn't even bother checking in with them because I was 18. I'm doing what I do. I was driving up to Des Moines, Iowa to the skin kitchen to get tatted with my uncle. And so I had to pull over and call him from a payphone. And I did have a cell phone, but I think it was dead, at the time. But like 12 hours no problem. Like I had a map scope, like I got my route. I've driven it multiple times with my dad when he let me drive when I was 14. So I was like, oh, I knew this road like the back of my hand. But it's like, so now when we move back to Jacksonville, guess what? You guys have cards. You're going to follow your mom. And if you get tired, don't get tired. Figure out a groove, find a way, and then dad will I'm just going to drive all 12. I might start out in the Suburban. Then I'm going to go over to the child that's probably the least mentally tough, which would be Hunter. And I'll go and drive his truck for a little bit. Then I'll go back over to Face, and give her a little spot. Then I'll probably go back.
A spot. So everybody's driving their cars back.
They got they have to. And that's the thing, man. You got to let them experience it. You got to let them know like what it is they can and can't do. I mean, heck, when I was in college, when I was 19 at the Air Force Academy, me and two buddies would drive from Colorado Springs, Colorado to Texas A&M, literally to spend 24 hours because we spent 32 hours in the car. We just did it. We ate it. We didn't sleep. Like you sleep when you're dead or in the car, just not while you're driving, So you have to teach them these things. You have to, educate them. Like even my daughter, when she had a flat, like, hey man, calm down. And she was actually calm. She's like, hey, it's flat. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, what's around you? She figured it out. She drove it over there. I wasn't going to argue with the guy, even though I think they could have just simply repaired the tires. She bought another one. I wasn't there for
it. You're going to tell them that you think they could have just patched it without looking at it? Like you weren't even around?
Well, I wasn't around, but I'm not going to say, hey, let me drive another 2 hours to come get you and argue over a $155 tire. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just got to charge that to win it.
Yeah. I was figuring, well, considering you weren't there to even argue about whether it was a sidewall and all that, I love it. So like, that's tremendous.
Yeah, and you have to teach them.
Yeah. So that's as a lesson to everybody out there who's got kids, and maybe if you're watching and you're younger, I at one point in my life thought I was invincible. Running this morning, I've since realized that I'm not, just because I get up and my body hurts, and to get going and to get moving and all that stuff doesn't feel great all the time. And so yes, like your body is fallible, it is human, it'll break. So be sure to be safe out there, especially when you're driving a vehicle, and try to pay attention to everything that's going on around the roadways. All right, Schlegs, some more little nuggets here. We're going to start with this. The NCAA, we talked about it, I believe, I don't know if we got to Monday, maybe Friday. We touched on it, never really got to it. NCAA, current rules. Do you know what the rules are for gambling for current student athletes in college?
Can't gamble. Can't.
Well,
not on sports.
Not on sports that the NCAA sponsors. So I think like you could probably bet on the Kentucky Derby, because as far as I know, I don't think that there's like an NCAA sponsored
on jockeys
on the Sport of Kings, on horse racing. I mean, you think about all the sports the NCAA has, and Ohio State has 36 of those bad boys. Like I can't imagine that there's a sport they don't sponsor really that you can get at some point, obviously in the professional ranks, but so you can't bet on any of those. The NCAA is considering, you want to throw that up there, Pat, removing its ban on pro sports betting. And so that would then open up the ability for college players not to bet on college. And I'm curious to see how this looks, where can you bet still on your same sport at the professional level, or can you bet on other sports, not your same sport, or how this is going to work. But Pat Forty at Yahoo Sports was reporting this. It's interesting to see this because there's so much money wagered, and especially you look at the NCAA tournament and college football and all of those different things. Now the CFP, all of those different things. And since everyone else is betting on that, well, we're not going to let you bet on college, but you can at least bet on the professional ranks that we still have, which I think that makes sense. Hell, I don't even have a problem with kids betting on other college sports as long as you're not betting on your own. But
that was the other question. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I don't sports bet. I really don't gamble whatsoever because I work too damn hard to get my money. If I'm going to go spend my rat hole money, it's going to be advances.
More money. So like you take that money, you charge it to winning, and they give you more if you're good.
I save it, or I buy things that are going to appreciate over time that I can also experience, aka firearms or archery, or weight equipment. But that being said, my here's it from a coach's perspective. The hardest thing that you have to do now in a real life Wednesday situation that we do at Ohio State, where we educate guys, is these guys have money now like they never have had before. And now, when it was just, listen, you can't bet on sports, period, I now have to have the lecturers and the education on pro sport betting and gambling and reach out. If like, you just opened another door that we have to educate these guys on, of the do's and don'ts, and the problems that can arise from becoming addicted to this. Now, as a casual bettor, do you think they have you have a competitive advantage? Like, the games, like, who's good, matchups, like, those things.
Let me tell you, though, I think it's
Go
even
ahead.
more so in college. When I went to the NFL, I always like telling this story. My first year, we would do kind of college football pick 'em pools,
Yeah.
and there'd be 20 games or whatever, and you would have to pick 10, and you could pick them, and we do it against the number. And we'd have I think the first year we had 6 guys, maybe the next year had 8. And then everybody also had to pick the Saturday night, like whatever the big game was. So you pick those 10, plus everyone had to pick the 11th. And then we'd have weekly payouts of who won, who lost versus the week. And then we would have a full season long one as well. And my first 2 years, I won it. I think one of the years I went 75-52 or something crazy. I was well over 500. And I told people, I was like I'm picking, Indiana versus Illinois. Why that game sucks? I'm like, that may suck, but I know about this, that Indiana's not good up front and Illinois' line's good. And so they're going to be able to run the football. And so you're telling me this number, I had everything. Now by my third and fourth year strikes, all of the guys that we had played with were gone. Not a lot of the same coaches were there. Schemes had changed. But when you know those matchups and you know how they fit, and just because one team might be 6-2, another team's 4-4, the team that's 4-4, they might not be as good, but what they do well, the other team can't stop.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. It's you start getting in the game. And so if you watch and you study it, you get that a little bit. And so I'm curious if these guys will have any of those elements there when you come to betting in the NFL with because it starts coming down to, I would have my friends, and this was just for fantasy back in the day, texting me, who's playing, who's up, how's this guy feeling, are they healthy? And I'm like, dude, leave me alone. I'll give you some information, but I'm not going to give you right before the game. I'm trying to play. Yeah. I know that you're trying to win your fantasy game. I'm trying to win an actual game so I can keep my job. We can win games and hopefully continue to move forward. But that's the real deal. And those guys will have access into all of that. And so those are the real life conversations, like you said, Schlags, that are going to take place.
What do you think, Bob? Honestly, are you pro this? Are you against this?
Well, here's the big thing. People might say I'm more of a libertarian by nature. Don't tell me how to live my life, and I'm not going to tell yours. I have certain moral values that I hold dear. I'm not the biggest gambler in the world, and I don't think people probably should gamble all that much, especially people who can't control it. But I'm not going to sit here in a country where we have great freedoms and tell you how to live your life. If you want to do things that I don't agree with, you're allowed to do that. Just don't tell me that I've got to do them. And so I'm a believer in freedom of choice. I think that that's a bedrock of our country, and that allows freedom of religion, freedom of opportunity, freedom of movement, of transit, of occupation, whatever it is. And so you can choose. Hey, you may be the smartest dude in the world, Shakes, and if you're Matt Damon and Good Will Hunting, and you just want to be a construction worker because you know what? That's what I want to do. This isn't like Stalin grabbing you and saying, no, dude, you're going to go be a scientist and
you're going to do math.
You're going to go do that math and build me a missile so we can take over the world. No, you don't have to do that. You can find the utility of what makes you happy in this world and what the life you want to live. So I'm a big believer in that. But like you said, the education process of this is going to be paramount because, you and I, we've had friends that have had addiction problems to one thing or another, whether it's gambling or substances. And sometimes those things overlap because the same things that wires you for it is going to wire you for it, for all of it, for good and bad. You get locked in on things and you're really good at it and you go and, well, when you get that in a vice, then it's not always the best. So I'm pro this because I'm pro-choice as far as giving people opportunities, as long as you're not going to harm anyone else. Now, but these guys are making a lot of money. And so it's one thing when you're betting small denominations, when you start betting comma situations here, then we've got some issues when you get behind and start chasing.
Yeah. And again, I'm only saying that because now you potentially put yourself in a hole. But again, those are choices and decisions and actions that you have to be accountable for. And where does this, my question is, by just keeping it banned, like, are you eliminating problems that could arise that could hurt the sport? AKA, I get in a hole and now I'm going to start doing some stuff in my own games.
Yes, that's the
You know,
question.
like
That's always the worry, is like when guys,
and maybe it's don't worry about it, hold them accountable, have integrity, or you just eliminate the opportunity for that to even transpire because you don't allow them to gamble on sports that the NCAA has. So I'm neither here nor there on it. I just know that if you do it, there has to be dedicated meetings and time invested in educating the athletes on where this could all go. That's all.
All right. I agree with that, Schlegs. Before we get going here, I want to tell parents, athletes, protect what matters most with Export mouth guards, trusted by professional athletes, designed by NHL team dentists. Export mouth guards are scientifically tested to help absorb those high-impact hits, protecting both your teeth and your brain. Export mouth guards have 3 layers of advanced protection, including a patented use of carbon fiber, custom fit to your own unique smile. They 3D print that bad boy in there, so it means more protection, better performance, max comfort, clear communication, so you can focus on your game, not on your gear. Do not take chances with your safety. Visit exportguards.com/Bobby today and save 15% on your order. Export, protect what matters most. We've talked about the 16-team playoff, the expansion, 14, 16, different things. We got into that a little bit Friday, a little bit yesterday. We're going to get into some more of it now and some of the other suggestions coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And listen, if you're watching, please like, subscribe, questions, comments, all of those great things. Had some sweet comments and questions we got into yesterday in Tailgate Talk. We got a couple more that we'll dive into from Friday's show, because there was like 6 really good ones. Then a lot of good stuff going on. Schlegs, look at this. We talked in the college football playoff. We got in, do you like 14? Do you like 16? How should we do the seeding? I think there's consensus on that. Multiple auto bids. Like, I'm not really a fan of the automatic qualifiers outside of conference champs. Like, I don't think the Big Ten and SEC should each get 4 or 5. Hell, if you need 6, get 6. If there's a year you have 3, you get 3. That's just how it works. All right. But I do think around that, there's 3 other issues I kind of want to get to. One of them is the issue for strength of scheduling. And so that's one of the things when we talked about standardization and uniformity. Big Ten's playing 9. I think every other conference outside the SEC is playing 9. Apparently ESPN is to go into the SEC. They're trying to say, we want you to play 9 conference games. Now, SEC generally is stronger. This year, I think that there was a little bit of a paper dragon element to it. We're like, oh, they're playing this team. Look how good they are. Are they really that good? Like, are they really that good? Because I watched some of these teams play, and it's like, all right, I don't know if they were as good as everybody thought that they potentially were.
Are they skewed by the brand? You know what I'm saying, Bob?
It's like they're skewed by the perception and by the brand. And so that, I think, is what you have to come into contact with. So we'll talk about that. I think the SEC gets to 9 games though here, probably within the next year or 2.
And where is the Big Ten?
They're at 9. I think every other conference is at 9 right now, because the conferences are so big. If you want everybody to play everyone, like even close to it, you've got to get 9 games.
Make it 10. I mean, that's what everybody wants to see. Make it 10. Now, I will say, going back, Bob, and I was thinking about if you did it the way that they currently have it, 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten, 2 ACC, 2 Big 12, 1 on the tweet, it had 1 group of 6. Maybe they included the Pac-12 in there, but 1 group of 5, right? The best ranking 1. And then you have 3 at large. And Notre Dame's probably going to be one of those at large because they don't play in a conference. I still want to figure out how we do that revenue share with them, because I think it's completely unfair that they get to keep it all. But then so that means you have 2 additional ones. And that's really where, hey, ACC or Big 12, like there's still 2 more out there, or even group of 5, like be up in there. And they just take the best ones that are the next available teams in there. So you could potentially get 2 group of 5s, right? And then one to the ACC and Big 12, or maybe, hell, the ACC is really competitive that year and they get 4. You know what I'm saying? So I don't mind that. My biggest problem is the seeding needs to be dictated by the best teams. That's what needs to happen.
I think that's all. Like we've already put that to bed. There's none of this auto seed buy
Yes.
crap. And so if you get to 14, the 2 best, probably 16 is the best. But the strength of schedule, I'm a big believer. Like if you want to stay at 9, that's fine. Everybody plays 9. I think you should have to play one other group, Power 4 school from a non-conference perspective. Ideally, someone that's pretty good. And so that would get you to 10 games. Then what you do with your other 2, that's fine. I mean, I don't care. If you're going to play Max School, Sun Belt, if you want to play an FCS, I guess you can throw that in there. I mean, I would be like vehemently against that. However, I do understand how the economics of college football work, and like those are money-making opportunities for those other schools. And also it allows you to develop your young players too, Schlegs, a little bit. I mean, that because there is no preseason. So this gives you some of those games, maybe get some of your guys in. But 10 of your games should be like locked in, legitimate power 4 schools. Your 9 conference, and then go play your 1. And like Ohio State, they're playing Texas. They've got Georgia. They've got Bama on the schedule. They've got those big games coming through. And that's how I have it. And then I think you can more adequately have those conversations about what the schedule looks like. Because right now, I don't ever want to punish a team for scheduling up in their non-conference.
Right.
Like if you're going to go, and like LSU, I mean, I know they've lost like 5 straight openers, but they're playing Florida State and I think they play Clemson this year. Like you're playing good teams out of conference. I'm going to reward you for that. Like we shouldn't just penalize you. I think they played USC at one point, but like we're not going to penalize you for playing those games because that's what people want to see. And that's what we should want to see as a college football society is put the best on best, the good on good. And so hopefully everybody starts doing that. I don't know if you can make a requirement or try to build that in, but that to me would kind of help answer that. And then I don't know if the thing is, as far as strength of schedule, like a lot of high schools, they have, states for playoffs, they have like the point rating system and everything. And I don't know if you institute something like that. Like they've had those power strength of schedule ratings and different things, and they have metrics that go by that. I don't know if that's something that they start building in, like you add that and say, hey, this is where these teams are. Like this is real as far as strength of schedule, because then they'll have like strength of record as far as who you played, who you've actually beat. And then there's some years where like you try to schedule up and they're just not good. And that's happened before too, where if you were to schedule Florida State in your non-conference this year, you're not getting any bump out of that. They're not adding to it, where historically you think that they would. And so that's part of the problem is when a team's down, trying to balance that. And so I think that there is some nuance to it. Any suggestions for you on how that should potentially work?
I agree with you about playing another Power 4 somewhere in there. The hardest thing with that is the length in which you have to schedule out and all of the underlying things that could go in to impact that game, and you're stuck in that game, and that's a down year, like to your point. That those are things that you can't control, but you can control how you win them and how you play in them and what does it look like, which also does matter. So that's the hardest thing is when you schedule so far in advance for these big games, like whatever group of 4 on group of 4, you just don't know. Hey, normally that team's a middle of the road team, and then you play them that year, and they're at the bottom of the Big Ten, and you're an SEC school, and you're really hoping that could have been a really good win of how they're going to do in the conference, and it turns out that it was not, and you wish you would have had some more juice. That's the thing that you just can't account for, because year in and year out, how cyclical the firing has been for coaches. I think that's actually going to change. You're going to have some more longevity with coaches hires because of the way that the structure of their contracts are and the recruiting aspect. But it's just, that's the one thing I worry about. It's also why I like 10, because now you can say who's the best. Like if you just make your conference that way and you say you got to schedule a banger with a group of 4, and then you have your other one that is your other one, and it can be your first game. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's just got to be in there.
Well, like some of you look at the ACC and SEC, and there are some built-in rivalries where you look like Clemson, South Carolina have always played each other, Kentucky and Louisville, like Florida State. Like there's a handful of those that have existed, and I know I'm leaving out a couple others that are probably floating around in there. There's like 4 or 5 that are pretty good. With everything. So like as you build that in, like, yeah, I think that's something that matters. And, you can just leave those in and those can be your locked in game. Like I got no problem with that but I do think that there's something pretty awesome about playing those games and being able to experience that. And it's a little barometer for the conference early in the year. But like I said, if you lose a close game, and also, by the way, don't make those games neutral site, make them at home.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need, yeah, again, I get it. If you want to play A&M and they're playing in Jerry World, or, you're playing, you're Florida and you're playing in Orlando or Jacksonville or something. Okay. Like I get it, but
yeah, they always play that game there, and that's kind of a staple. So we understand that, but
that's Florida, Georgia, but I'm talking and that's always been the case, just like Texas and A&M play at the state fair, but I don't need to see like all these other
Oklahoma.
games. Yeah. Or Texas, Oklahoma. I'm sorry. Play at the state fair. Oh gosh, people are going to shred me for that one. Schlegs, Red River. So I apologize for that. We got some more stuff that we'll get into with this. I got some stuff that we want to get into tomorrow. Really coming down because there's really 2 more points as I've kind of looked at this when we start talking about location of games and then timeline of the season. And those are the 2 big ones that we'll kind of dive into here throughout the rest of the week. But we are long for a break. We got a former Buckeye who won a big time award and was asked about that. He's playing in a city now where the guy, I believe, played, and was asked about comparisons and how he would be able to play rate himself against them. And he's one of our favorite guys. He's been on the show here. We'll tell you who that is and what they said next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show. And our guy, Seth McLaughlin, he has been on the show here with us. Awesome dude. Actually played with Mike McCarthy, the assistant O-line coach down in Cincinnati. Told him that they're going to love this guy. Like, he's an awesome guy. He's like, yeah, you can tell, smart. He's going to lead the room. I mean, you really got lucky with him falling and tearing his Achilles because he's going to be healthy. He thinks he's going to be ready to go for the start of camp. And he was asked about comparing himself to Dave Remington. Okay, he won the Remington Award for best center, and then asked to compare himself to it. And this is what he said.
To even hold that guy's jockstrap, that guy's awesome. He's incredible, Hall of Fame type caliber person, and he left an incredible legacy, when it comes to that award. And it was really cool to be honored in that way.
When people say that you were the most talented player, the best, highest prospect left on the board when the draft ended, is there any silver lining to how the season ended with you last year? I mean, it's obviously heartbreaking to rupture your Achilles, but to have the silver lining to see that a team like this sees value in your skill and what you accomplished at Ohio State.
And it's just a blessing to have an opportunity. I'm so thankful for these guys bringing me in. Even after all the teams passed on me in the draft, I think it says a lot that they had the confidence to just even give me an opportunity, and I'm so thankful for that.
That's the right answer, Seth. I see you, man. I'm still pissed off that he didn't get drafted, but
yell about it some more. I think somebody might hear you, but I think like that, when people ask you those questions, it's almost like a no-win, Schlegs. You have to find that like perfect level of deference. And I've loved him, Seth, since he's got in here and watching how he's worked and watching how he worked with Seth or not with Seth, with Carson, how they got close and he helped him. Like, he's just really a great dude.
He is.
So when they bring up like, hey, you won the Remington, Remington, Jeff played down here in Cincinnati too. What are you thinking? Like, it's such an awesome line by Seth. He's so witty and smart. So
I hope they even hold that guy's jockstrap.
Yeah, I mean. Your thoughts on holding jock straps? Like,
yeah, I love them. The Duke, man, old school, man. You guys remember when they used to pass out the Duke at the EQ counter in high school? Awesome. Here's the thing with Seth is that he's extremely smart. I keep going back to the development that transpires at Ohio State. You have a guy in Seth McLaughlin that was at Alabama that everybody was saying and blaming him for snaps or whatever, et cetera, comes up here, completely different deal. Eye-opening experience when you come to Ohio State in the competitiveness that is every swinging day in the weight room and on the field. Was getting beat a lot, had to step up his game and really pushed him to where he was the number one center in all of college football while also missing games. And the one thing that I guarantee you, if you ask Seth about they asked him the silver lining, like he still won a national championship. The things that nobody else got to see is exactly what you alluded to, Bob. It was the fact that he was able to help Carson Hintzman, who in his own right was struggling, got beat out at a position, still had to have the resolve to continue to get better week in and week out. So when called upon, which he was, that he could go in there and play guard, then boom, move over to center with what happened with Seth. And now he's the starting center in the apex and finished out very, very strong in an offensive line that played 9 guys that year. 2 of your key starters going into the season going out, and we're still able to win a national championship. Seth had a lot to do with that, regardless of being on the field or not. He's going to be a phenomenal pro. Something that Cincinnati has needed for a long time is protection up front with Joe. He is on par with Joe mentally, which is great because they're going to have a great connection. I'm excited to see what his future holds down there in the Nasty Natty.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And you mentioned, the connection obviously with Joe, but his ability to teach and coach, and bring guys along. And it's amazing the relationship that him and Carson have. And I'm gonna get Carson on here because I've talked to him about it a lot, and he's an awesome guy. And to be able to handle everything the way that he has been very, very special and very impressive. And then to hear that relationship, how him and Seth bonded. Because I'm gonna be honest, if someone came in to take my job like that, and I don't know if I would want to listen to anything they have to say. Right. And Seth was always super deferential to like Carson's athleticism, his physical prowess. He's like, he's a much better athlete than I am. He's stronger. He's all those things, which is true, but that's not what has always made Seth great. Seth's always been incredibly smart, puts himself in the best position to always have success. And so, you hear that, like his wittiness and humor is absolutely awesome. It's amazing because he's never watched The Office. And I told my buddy, this is a show for you. Like, you will love the dry humor and wit that The Office provides. And I was almost amazed, because I feel like that's something, I know it's an older show now, that would be like right in his wheelhouse with the type of dude that he is.
Yep. 100%, Bob. And that's where, he's going to add value. And that's why I look at like Joe, right? Like, I mean, you're under there feeling that guy sacked every single time you take a snap under center, so you guys are going to get really close, but he needs somebody that's going to be calling out the protection, understanding where everything's going on the same wavelength as he is, that can also communicate to those 5 guys up front. Seth's going to be that guy.
Yeah, it'll be, he'll definitely be that dude moving forward. All right, Schleiks. Where to go from here? We got our headlines coming up next, and so we've got some big stuff there. But before we get there, I want to tell you about our friends at Backer. I've talked to them a lot about this brand new Buckeye premium gear for the fans. Backer. It's bckr.com. Go check it. Founded to make better quality fan gear. If you ever wanted, like, hey, I want the fan gear that's the good stuff. Like, I play golf in, I hunt it, I fish it, I'm skiing. And you know what? That stuff costs a little bit more, but it looks better, it feels better, and it's going to last longer. It's going to have all the features you want, and that's the stuff you're getting with Backer, bckr.com. If you go there, buy what you like, use promo code all caps Bobby, you're going to get free expedited shipping. And here's a great part of it. A portion of the proceeds go back to help support the student athletes. So you're supporting the Buckeyes, you're buying sweet Buckeye gear, and if you use my promo code, it is getting shipped to you immediately right away. And so go check them out, backer.com. That is BCKR.com. Their gear's sweet. I love it. Schlegs loves it. It works well. So go check them out. Coming up next, we have our headline, Schlegs. And you know what? This might be time to get into one of the great debates of what you call something, depending on what region you're from. And when you're in college football, you're pulling people from all around the country. I got to live around the country. there were some different terms for the same thing, and I always heard that, and then all of a sudden I got there and it was a little wild, but I'll fill you on that here coming up next. All right, Schlegs. We're going to sit here and we're going to talk a little bit. You're from Texas. You grew up in Dallas. So when you would like to have a carbonated beverage from a can that's non-alcoholic, what would you call that?
150%. I call everything that way. I have
What's
a Coke.
that way? Well,
I have a Coke. I have a Coke. I mean, now again, I just gave a reference. I have a Coke. What movie is that from?
That's Boondock Saints, Schlegs.
Exactly.
I know that.
I just wanted to keep that real. So yeah. So I mean, growing up in Texas, I sit down. What would you like? I have a Coke. What kind of Coke? I have a Dr. Pepper. Dead serious.
That's so amazing. I'll have a Coke.
That's how you do it, right? My dad loves Coke, by the way. I mean, it was always there in the house, man. Coke's everywhere. But I like Dr. Pepper. That's my change up. Dr. Pepper or Coke.
There we go. And so Dr. Pepper, Coke, whatever. And so in the Midwest, we just called it pop. You
called it
pop. And if you're from Cleveland, you call it pap. Maybe Chicago. I'll get a pap. It's almost like an A to an O. People call that having flat vowels, which I never knew what it was. And so that was it. Up in the New England region, they called it soda. Okay. And we would go visit like the East Coast. Our friends were from Jersey and they would call it soda. You want a soda, Bobby?
Soda pop.
It's just a soda pop. So in Ohio, we just canceled the soda, called it pop. And then I'd go down to Texas, be like, what kind of pop do you have? And they're like, what is wrong? Like,
what is pop?
It's pop. Carbonated stuff that comes in the can. So this concerned me a little bit because the regionality is something that I always loved about our great country. And so in 1947, we had pop, we had Coke, and that's kind of basically what it was. Northeast, you had soda, and that was kind of the breakdown of everything. California called it soda. And then apparently there's some little pocket there in like the Memphis region, I think, where they called it soda as well. All of a sudden, fast forward, Schlegs, because the world has been changing and people have been moving all over the place. We live in a transient country. The Coke section, I mean, Schlegs, you're like shrinking a lot, and the pop section has shrank a lot, and this soda nonsense has taken over the world. And I don't know if I can get behind soda being the preferred nomenclature when I'm asking for a Coke or a Dr. Pepper or a Sprite or whatever it might be.
As I've gotten older, what would you have to drink? I just tell them now the name because the names are what they are. I'll have a Dr. Pepper. I prefer, if I'm going to a Cane's or City Barbecue, I'm like, I'll take an Arnold Palmer, right? Sweet and sweet, just like me. That's how I order it every single time. And so, like, I think we've gotten to the point where now we don't even need the nomenclature of pop, soda, or Coke. It's just, why don't you just call it what it is? Because you'll say, hey, I'll take a Coke. Oh, we have Pepsi products. Like they don't say our soda products are Pepsi. They say, oh, we carry Pepsi products. Then I'll say, well, then do you have a Dr. Pepper? And they normally say yes. And then I order that. So, but this soda thing,
Dr. Pepper's not a Pepsi product, though, Schlegs.
I know, but they carry it.
Very Schweppes, which is
they carry it though, Bob. That's what I'm saying. Like every single time you go into a restaurant that carries Pepsi products, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but 60% of the time, it's every time, and that is they're going to have Dr. Pepper. Just saying.
Okay, I mean, if you're going to tell the folks that, as a matter of fact, becoming like the thing is you go and move and you play and you live around the country and you get guys coming from everywhere. It's interesting to kind of hear that. I can't. I'm gonna have to start asking guys in Ohio, like for Ohio State, like what we're calling it. Me, what do they call it? Start talking to them and see if they say soda. Like I know people in Ohio still call it pop, and most of the Midwest, but we just got to keep that going. And if you want to keep calling it Coke in the South, Schlegs,
way to go, Pat. Pat just chimed in. People in Cincinnati say soda. You also like what's that chili place called? Starts with S.
Skyline.
Yeah, Skyline. You like watered down chili too. Nothing against Skyline. It's just not my preferred. I like substance with my chili. Yeah. But still, you guys are weird down there on the river.
Absolutely. All right. Well, next, we've got our tailgate talk where we answer your questions.
Oh, I love these.
moving forward. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Lake Spur Marketing. Schlegs, they've been doing a great job. They partner with us. Lake Spur is a full-service ad agency built on trust, strategy, and performance. Lake Spur and their team, they shield your team from the outside noise, the cold calls. They let you do what you need to do and what you do best, which is run your business. They've got tons of experience, over 100 years in the game. And so Lake Spur eliminates waste and delivers on time and on budget. They don't chase clicks. They build partnerships. Lake Spur Marketing, the proof is in their partners. We got our tailgate talk coming up next. All right, welcome back in to the Bobby Carpenter Show, Schlegs. As we finish this out, we got our tailgate talk brought to you by our friends at Real Truck to bring your truck, Jeep, or Bronco to life. All right, there's some great comments that were from our show on Friday. I just want to get a couple more of these as we went through here. We were talking a little bit about how to handle the players and what they're going to try to do as far as how to cap or put some guardrails on NIL. And like the more I think about this, Schlegs, the more I realize they're going to have to do something and define the level of employment with the school. And I know that there's so many people in academia that are against that immensely, but like you have students who work for that are graduate students or whatever that work for the university and do research and work for professors. And like they get paid from the school and they have contracts and they have things they've got to meet and perform. But this is from Jim Bailey. He said, when are talking heads going to learn that the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot deny players the right to earn what they can earn, which means you cannot deny a legal limit to what any player can make? There is only one way around that, and that is to get the players to unionize, negotiate on how much they get to earn with the union. Why would the players ever agree to limit their income? And I don't know if it's agreeing to limit their income, but it's agreeing to the process of how things would operate. And I don't even know if it needs to be a union as much as it could be some sort of workforce organization or whatever it would be, just some sort of broad association. But there is going to have to be some level of employment contracts with that. Now that's going to be part of this, Jim, is if you're going to getting your revenue share from the school, from the TV dollars that they're giving, well then, yeah, with that on the other side, that's guaranteed we can then have stipulations on how that's going to operate. I mean, that makes sense to me. Does it make sense to you?
Here's what makes sense to me. As long as we can streamline the situation from oh my gosh, his name just escaped me. Guy from Indiana.
Signetti?
Signetti. Talking about the $40 million, right? And again, as long as we know when you go to the NFL, you're an employee of the Cleveland Browns. You're getting paid accordingly. Whatever allows us to get to yearly contracts, I'm all for. That's where I stand. Whether you got to make them employees of the university, remember, like maybe you set up to where they're employees of Ohio State Football LLC. I don't know. Whatever it is that you got to do to where now their benefits are already in there. Like, I mean, you have team doctors, you have all those things, you have workman's comp, like you're taking care of all of their stuff already. So if they are employees with somewhere and it allows us to get to contracts moving forward, yearly contracts, I'm all for it. Because then you know where the money is and you know how to budget accordingly and you know where they're all going. And you can say, man, this is how much we can give you. And it's like, that is what it is. And you have to go do these things, like the policies that you have to adhere to. And if you don't adhere to them, you will be let go from the team. It honestly clears up everything when you make them an employee. Now, who are they employed by? Could it be a subsidiary of the Ohio State Incorporated that is the university? I don't know.
That's a big question. Kentucky's doing something that I've been meaning to get to with you on this. Yeah. They're looking at that. We'll get into that on tomorrow's show, because I think that's that
kind of alluded to what I was saying about the Ohio State LLC.
Yeah, 100% of how that's going to work, the pros of it, the cons of it, and how that could potentially operate, and if that's something that they could explore here. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But coming up, we got our parting shots as we wrap up the show with one Mr. Anthony Schlegel. All right, Schlegs, you got a minute. Close the show down.
I got a minute, but you know what? There's a thing on there. Pat says Milroe and on what his weaknesses were. And you can just click on it. I'm just going to articulate on it. But, he went down and he sat down with coaches and basically just talked about all of the different weaknesses that he had. And people were like, why are you telling us all their weaknesses? Like, why would I not? You're the one that's been watching my film. I want you to know that I know what they are too. And I'm working on them. In essence, is what he's saying. But what I love from that example is the self-introspection to say that you have not arrived and there is room for growth. And again, the only way to grow, right, is to create the friction. Like friction is what makes you sharper, right? The chaos in our lives is what makes you tougher. Like you talk about all the time, Bob, like just go do hard things. But the hard things that you gotta do, not confusing activity with achievement, is working on those weaknesses. He has a ton of room to grow. He's a very athletic dude. And hopefully he can have success at the next level, but he understands that there are things that he has to work on. And I like the fact that he said that.
Absolutely. We'll dive into that maybe a little more on Wednesday as well, Schlegs, and get into that and understanding your blind spots in this world as a player, as a coach, as an athlete, all there. Buckeyes, thanks for watching the show. We'll see you on Wednesday.